Welcome to the Family Photography Marketing Podcast, where we dive into the world of marketing and help you take your business to the next level. I'm your host, Fiona, a marketing expert with 10 years of experience in the family photography industry, and in each episode of this podcast, I'll be sharing my insights and strategies for successful marketing to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of digital and traditional marketing techniques. So whether you're just starting out or looking to fine-tune your marketing approach, this podcast has something for you. So join me and let's get started. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Family Photography Marketing Podcast. Today we are going to be talking about Pinterest. So this may be a type of episode where you'll want to maybe take notes. I will add in some helpful details in the show notes. And it is kind of tricky to teach over podcast, just because I know, like many of you, I listen to podcasts while I'm driving or doing things where I can't really pay attention. But one of the things I like to do myself with educational type podcasts is listen once through to the episode, get the main gist of it, and then go back through and listen again and take notes. So I'm just giving you a couple ways to best utilize this information. All right, so a lot of you have expressed interest in Pinterest. Oh my gosh, that was an amazing rhyme. So I feel like for family photographers, Pinterest is completely underutilized. Other types of photographers, mostly wedding and elopement photographers, have really figured out how powerful Pinterest is. But for family photographers, it mostly remains a planning tool for us, a source of inspiration, maybe how we help our clients with styling. I know I use it that way as well. So I just want to go through some of the ways that I realized that Pinterest was really, really effective for my own business. So like I've said before in other episodes, I consider myself an early adopter of new technology. It's just always kind of been how I operate. So when I saw that Pinterest was transitioning away from like meal planning and party planning and just pinning random things on the internet and actually becoming a strategic marketing tool, I jumped on board pretty quickly and wanted to learn about it. So if you also have an account, you probably used it a lot more than you do now. That was true for me as well. So what happened is, across the board, other people started paying attention to Pinterest, and savvy marketers figured out ways to play the Pinterest system. So Pinterest started to feel a bit spammy to a lot of people, and they kind of left the platform. But there's one influencer in particular who sold a ton of Pinterest courses about how she grew her education company using Pinterest methods that Pinterest now does not recognize. So there's been a lot of confusion about how to best utilize Pinterest because Pinterest itself has changed up its algorithm to avoid people over spamming the Pinterest algorithm, which did for a very short window of time work really well in driving tons and tons of traffic to these web pages of these savvy marketers. So I was kind of in Pinterest in that era. I was watching that go down. My own Pinterest experience as a consumer was really frustrating because I felt like I got tons of pins that all went the same place, and Pinterest hadn't figured out this loophole yet. So because I still was using the site myself and I saw that other photographers were using it, I came up with a little bit of a strategy and just began pinning things on there and growing my account. And it was sort of in the background of my mind until I realized that 3 of my session clients for my adventure shoots had all come from Pinterest. So they had found me using keywords on that website, like on Pinterest itself. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's really powerful. 3 of my highest paying session clients in a row is definitely an indicator and something that I want to pay attention to. So that's when I started realizing that I was probably underutilizing Pinterest as well. And I dove more into what are the correct ways to use Pinterest. So really quickly, I'm going to touch on, if you haven't been involved in Pinterest in the last couple of years, what was happening on there was these marketers were using this idea of looping, where you repin pins to drive website traffic for lead capture. So it's basically like sort of semi-spammy titles, all leading to a lead capture page. So every single pin would lead to the same place. And so people were frustrated because it would look like they were getting new information, but it would still be going to the same link, if that makes sense. So Pinterest noticed this looping trend and saw that marketers were able to override the algorithm for their own gain. And subsequently, Pinterest switched up the type of content that the algorithm favors. So if you were someone who was a quote unquote looper back in the day, you will have some habits that you will need to adjust. If you are new to the Pinterest world, then you can start the right way right from the beginning. Instead of pushing content with the most repins, which is what the algorithm was doing before. So basically how it worked is people would get in these pinning groups and everyone would repin everybody's spammy content. And then the Pinterest algorithm would be tricked into thinking that that was valuable content and push it further. So that is no longer happening because of the changes in the Pinterest algorithm. Pinterest now pushes original content that is visually appealing. That is great news for photographers because we produce visually appealing content and original content every single month. So how do we use Pinterest as a marketing tool for our own photography businesses? The first, you have one step before you get into Pinterest. And I'm going to give a little history here. So probably starting in 2020 and before, there's been this massive shift to social media usage, right? People have abandoned many apps in favor of others. Other apps have popped up. Some have gone away. Waves of popularity and visibility are not in anyone's control on any of these apps. So we've all put our eggs in the basket of these apps like Instagram, where we actually have no control. So they could sell those apps, they could change ownership, they could completely change the algorithm, which has happened over the last year, where I know for me, my reach is very, very sporadic and unpredictable. So when you start your Pinterest journey, you need somewhere that you're pinning from that is a space that you own, which is why before you start anything with Pinterest, you need a website with a simple blog. Now, you may shut down and be like, oh my gosh, no, I can't handle it. It's too much work. It's not too much work. You can get a simple blog. There's so many options right now just to get started where you can own that space and have a place for your photography that's not going to get sold or hacked or, well, it may get hacked. So you need to protect your website, but it's not going to, you are the owner of that digital space. So you have control, right? So you need that space before you get started. A lot of people will start with Pinterest and then not have a home base for their content of where they're pinning from. And then they kind of fall off on this strategy. So you need to have a website. And it doesn't have to be complicated, and you can go back to my website episode if you need help on that. Now, I want to do a quick message here because I got someone reach out to me about the podcast and said they were a creative photographer, as in not growing a business, and she wanted to let me know that she wanted to do whatever she wanted with her photography and not focus on consistency. So again, the majority of the things I talk about in these podcast episodes only pertain to photographers who are in active growth mode. If you are a creative photographer who's doing this as a hobby or you don't really need an income, then you don't have to follow these steps. I want to free you, give you permission. You are able to do whatever you want. And of course, everyone is able to do what you want. I'm just saying that if you are building a brand, you need to focus on the experience of the consumer. If you're not growing a brand, you don't. So just to clarify, I don't want anyone to feel like if you don't want to do this work, don't do it. Okay, so going to Pinterest, I'm going to go through, this is where the write down part, take notes part of the episode is probably the most valuable. I'm not going to go into how to create a Pinterest board because you can Google that. You can Google how do I create a Pinterest board, or if you have a board that you've had for a long time, you have like a Pinterest account, you can change that account over to a business account. And if you have boards on there that you want to keep, you can just make them secret. That is actually the preferred method because then just like any app, if you're a long-time user, you will have a little bit more traction than if you just start a brand new account. So if you already have an account, then you can just convert it and make the boards you want to keep secret. You probably have boards on there that you don't need, like the board for planning your now 7th grader's first birthday party. So those you can just go ahead and delete. All right. So when you do that, when you make the switch over, choosing your board names is going to be your first most important task. The names of your board will be directly tied to how you are creating pinnable content. So pinnable content is content that the Pinterest algorithm will promote. Remember how we discussed what the Pinterest algorithm loves? It loves original, fresh content. But there's another word that appears in their best use literature over and over and over again. I went through their actual best uses put out by Pinterest, and that's the word inspiring. So all you have to do is create original, beautiful, and inspiring content all the time. So I'm sorry, that sounds super overwhelming. So that's why I kind of made it a joke. So the task is a lot easier than you think, because most business owners and people utilizing Pinterest, their first step is they have to go out and actually find a pretty image. You already have that. So we as photographers have such an easier task on this visual search platform than so many other businesses do. So to Pinterest, these beautiful images that we produce on the regular are already inspiring and beautiful and original, right? So if you think about any other business owner starting from 10 steps below where we are, we have such a leg up, and yet we're totally underutilizing this platform. So our job when it relates to Pinterest is to organize our imagery in a way that's inspiring. Or if you want a slightly different approach, you can organize your images in a way that is helpful, right? So your goal is not to make a board that says your name photography. You want to make well organized boards that include your name. So that would be like fall outfit inspiration, your name photography. And then you could have all of your images that you've taken in fall for your other clients to utilize for style planning, for example, on those boards. So it's organized in a way that if someone happens to click into the board, they see more of that type of content, and it's very easy for you as the pinner to know where you're going to pin. The content of both of these examples would be similar and organized in a way that it's helpful. So that's our goal. So the example of fall outfit inspiration, or you could say have something that's more to do with the actual helping of client pain points. So, best bribes I found for kiddo behavior, whatever it is, if you want to have a helpful sort of board that's not focused on styling. So when you start the process of naming your boards, one of the best things you can do is make a list of common questions or concerns that clients consistently have for you, which is what we should be doing in all of our educational marketing. So this should be something that you're regularly kind of asking your audience about, or just being aware of in general. So these questions and concerns can be about the booking process, how to react prior to the session, or how to prepare, what to expect at the session, after the session. These are all the sort of questions that we can work through. So start with 4 to 5 boards. A lot of times when people go onto a new app like this, they will overwhelm themselves by trying to do too much. So start with 4 to 5 simple boards that are named really well, and then you can start organizing your content. So if you're facing a new marketing adventure, you may be completely stumped with what to say. So is the answer just to throw every single image that you've created onto Pinterest? No. Should you pin 50 times a day? No. The max Pinterest wants to see you pin is 10 to 15 times a day, which is even like a ton. So it used to be back in the old algorithm days, the more pinning, the better, right? It was like spam, 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 loop, 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 just pooping pins all over the platform. That is no longer recommended, right? Pinterest will say you are a spammer, and they will not show any of your stuff to anyone. So you can repurpose pins that you've created already, or in the future, you can repurpose pins in creative ways. That is a thing that Pinterest actually wants you to do. So this is again the thing where once we've created this subset, like buckets of content, we can then go into repurposing them. So in the beginning, you may struggle with being overwhelmed about how to add value to content that you put on Pinterest. Now, again, we always want to remember that overwhelm is a choice. You are so smart, and you can figure things out by just remembering that you don't have to be overwhelmed, and you can take tiny baby steps. So there will be work ahead of you. Pinterest is a patience platform. That means that it's not like a viral TikTok, It's not going to react that way. It's going to be a situation where if you consistently pin, you will start to see results. All right, so if you're thinking about your own brand right now and you're thinking, okay, what would I do? Here's a few ideas. Write content like a blog post about how you would solve a problem. Think about how to showcase your brand. Think about how to showcase your personality. Build trust through consistency. Lead and direct to a clear designation. So like, come here if you would like to buy. That's an official marketing sentence there. Then we want to say, what is the main feature of each of these pins? So like you can feature one main keyword per pin. You want to be original, which you already are if you are coming up with the content yourself, and be aesthetically pleasing. Now, we're already aesthetically pleasing because we're producing consistent, beautiful photography. So when you're thinking about how often to pin, here's what Pinterest is hoping that you'll do. So this is what they put out this thing a couple years ago, and it was like how we hope you'll pin. So focus on consistency over volume. 1 to 3 great pins are better than 20 mediocre pins. Foster positivity and inspiration over FOMO and fear-based marketing. So part of the reason that they got themselves into trouble with these spammers is because they were kind of pushing this FOMO, fear-based marketing. FOMO and fear-based marketing is like, if you don't get this, you'll never feel this. That's what they want to avoid. They want you to be a place of positivity and inspiration from whatever you're pinning. You want to call people to action. The people on Pinterest, the users of Pinterest, are all about focusing on consumers who are ready to do, try, and learn. That is kind of one of their internal mottos. So how can you help them do that? If you have a pin button installed on your blog, Pinterest really likes that because it encourages visitors to pin themselves. So you can do all this. This is a situation where Google is your friend. You can, for whatever type of blog or website you have, you just type that into Google and you say how to add pin button to Squarespace blog or whatever it is. So here's a few more content ideas so that you kind of have ideas of what to say. So I'm just going to go through a few. Favorite poses for families, best tip for preparing kiddos for a family session, funny stories from fall family sessions, big kids clothing trends for fall, favorite color combinations in fall styling, favorite color combinations in spring styling, ideas on how to get your kid to wear an outfit they don't want to wear, favorite post photo shoot bribe and treat ideas, favorite print sizes for gallery walls, gallery wall ideas, behind the scenes content including finished images, and probably like 1,000 other ones that you can come up with. So this would be, you can see now how Pinterest can be fitting into your overall content strategy. So if you wrote a blog post that featured your own images, let's say you're gearing up for fall. It's summer, you're gearing up for fall, you want to do big kid fall clothing trends for fall. Wow, could I say fall one more time? Fall. Okay, focus on fall, focus on big kids. What are we doing? We're talking about what are the trends coming up for fall for bigger kids. This is like maybe kids who are, I'm talking big is in ages, kids who are like 6 and above, 7 and above, depending on however you normally photograph people. So you could create a blog post that showcases your images, links to trends, and then that is then put on Pinterest and also shared in your stories and your Instagram. And maybe that goes out in a newsletter. And fall trends for kids could be part of a newsletter that you send out in the summer that encourages people to start thinking about booking their fall photo shoot. So if you can see now, it all Pinterest works in so well with an overall content strategy that's focused on education and handholding, which is the highest and fastest way to build trust with potential clients. So it's a really helpful tool in that way. Here's where a lot of people get tripped up. They don't have a lot of content maybe in the beginning, and so they keep pinning just their basic, oh, my belly just growled. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Basic URL. So let's say it's like BetsyJonesPhotography.com. They keep using that as the URL, the unique URL for any image that they post. You really only want to have 3 to 5 images per unique URL. So I know that this website speak can be a little bit confusing, but if I write a blog post, that creates a unique URL. So Becky Jones Photography /blog/ what to wear for fall family sessions. That's a unique URL. So if I have 3 to 5 images within that blog post and I pin all of those images, that is unique content to Pinterest. If I keep putting in the URLs just Becky Jones Photography over and over and over and over, Pinterest might identify me as a spammer. So that unique URL is really, really important. Now, here is an overlooked strategy on Pinterest, and that is to pin from your Instagram account. So you may be like, what the heck? How do I even do that? So first of all, this only works if you are at a level of consistency where if someone were to find an image that you love and want to book more of on Pinterest and followed that over to your Instagram, they would then find more trustworthy, consistent content there, as well as a link to your website where you have more consistent imagery and an easy way to book. So see how it's like a flow. If you're pinning from your Instagram account and you just have an Instagram account full of random images and none of them are what you even want to book, and you haven't done the due diligence to go through and make that work consistent, then you're just going to break trust. However, if you are in that place where you feel like you have a very solid, consistent portfolio anywhere that anyone can find you, which is what I recommend, then you can pin the images that you show on your Instagram and help draw traffic to your Instagram as well. So the way that I do that is I like to do Instagram on desktop. That's the easiest way for me. Log into my Instagram account on my desktop, and then when you go to the individual post, you'll see the post link. That's a unique URL. So then I take that link, copy it, and I go to Pinterest and I create a new pin and I upload the image from my computer, not try to pin the actual image that was on Instagram, because often that tiny square doesn't format well on Pinterest overall, which likes bigger images, right? If that makes sense. So Instagram has maybe made your image a tiny square. So when you create the image on Pinterest, you are using, when it says, where are we sending people for the unique URL, you're putting in the custom link for that post, but then you're uploading that Instagram picture that you posted directly from your desktop in full size. So that's kind of the trick. So then someone can say, oh, I like this person. And if we think about, we always want to mirror back to our own consumer behavior. The times I've actually found photographers that I love on Pinterest, my experience when I find them is I go to their website, I look through, and then it's very natural for me to want to find their Instagram as well. So if they had pinned from their Instagram, I wouldn't lose any trust there at all. If I click through and it went to their Instagram account and I'd be like, oh my gosh, more of this beautiful imagery that I love to see, then I can go to their website. It's like a nice little flow. And no matter where I'm clicking, I'm finding more of the type of imagery that drew me into the account in the first place. So here are some tips that you have to have on your Instagram to make it pinnable. So you need to make sure you're helpful in your captions. Like you want it to be that you're adding value, at least in some of your posts. Because if people are coming from Pinterest, it's really great if from your Pinterest account, they can grow quickly to know, like, and trust you. You need to have your location listed in your Instagram profile, because the main reason that they may be clicking over from Pinterest is to find out exactly where you are located, right? So if you don't, and I see this all the time where photographers don't have their location listed, I am not a private investigator. And so I'm not going to go try to figure out where you are. I'm just going to move on to the next person. And now Instagram more than ever has multiple links we can use, and they have way more characters to use in the bio. So there's really no excuse for not having your location listed easily to be able to be seen in your Instagram profile. You need to have a link in your profile that sends people ideally to your website. So another thing I see that people will have used the Instagram link, which on my account now I can have up to 5, but I don't know if that's rolled out for every single account. However, I'll see on people's Instagram link that they at one point in time they were doing something promotional, or they were sending people to a booking page for fall sessions, and they haven't updated that link. And so that very, very valuable clickable real estate goes somewhere completely unhelpful. So you need to have an updated link in your Instagram so that people can go and learn more from you. Once you are ready, then you can realize that what you're trying to do is just send people all around, and no matter where they find you, their consumer behavior can be moved forward to getting onto your calendar. That's how I always try to think about it. In the website episode, I talk about if you're driving a little car through your brand, you want to always be inspired the whole way you go, have your hand held, you can stop and ask for directions at any point in time, and you will get your answers and you'll be able to easily get where you want to go, which is on the calendar of the photographer. So here's the most valuable thing about Pinterest. Remember in the beginning of the episode, I said that Pinterest is a patience app. So TikTok, you've got viral content. I feel like TikTok's actually in the middle. So I had a viral TikTok video and that was in 2020, and I still get people watching that every day. So TikTok's actually more long lasting than Instagram. Instagram has a very, very short shelf life for content. So if you create beautiful content and it's on Instagram, there's a very low chance that in a year from now, anyone is ever going to see that again. And that's a little bit different for Reels. They have a little bit longer of a shelf life, but still not great. However, on Pinterest, I have pins that I pinned in like 2017 that still bring visitors to my website every single month. So it's that long tail content that makes Pinterest extremely valuable. It stays on there. If it does well, it can continue to bring traffic to your website. You can see data so easily. The data I track for the pins that I think are the most successful are who's clicking through to my website or who's clicking the link that's available in the pin. That tells me that people are so intrigued by this image that they're willing to leave Pinterest to see more of it. That's a valuable consumer physical action that I'm interested in learning more about. Now, here's where you can get tripped up with Pinterest. Pinterest is high on vanity metrics. Vanity metrics are metrics that don't really matter. So in this case, you can easily jump really, really high up into monthly views, like hundreds of thousands. I think at my peak, I was at like 500,000 or something. I don't even remember. Then it went down. Of course, that was just a few pins that were doing really well. I don't even know how they calculate that, but ignore that metric at the top. What's most important is to every month or so go in, check on your individual pins that seem to be doing well, see what they are, see how you could create more pins like that if you want to get more inspiration from your own brand. So the way I use Pinterest now is sort of like a catch-all for all the content that I created in that week or month or 2 weeks. You can set a date and say on the second Friday of every month or every Friday, I'm just going to quickly go through and pin all the content that I created for that week. And that's just a really, really simple way to do it. If you're someone who likes to have a longer period of work time, you can do it every month. But I wouldn't recommend that, just especially when you're in growth mode, because ideally Pinterest would like to see you pin a couple times a day. Of course, you can be pinning things that are helpful to your clients that aren't necessarily part of your brand strategy, but just keep that in mind. When you're in growth mode with something like Pinterest, you don't want to be just popping in there once a month. However, I'm also aware that marketing is overwhelming. And if that's all that you can do right now, then I still think it is worthwhile to utilize a Pinterest strategy. So I really hope that this was helpful. And I have in Mini Marketing School, which is my Instagram subscription, we're going to be talking more about Pinterest this week. So if you have individual questions about Pinterest, you can join Mini Marketing School, which is literally $4.99 a month. And you can ask in the group and you can ask me and we can help you with Pinterest. So I hope that is helpful. And I do have a course that I wrote on Pinterest, and I'll link it in the show notes if you feel like you want more information. It's specifically designed for family photographers. So if you're not a family photographer, you'll probably want to take what's in this podcast and repurpose it for your own business. So I hope that was helpful, and I will see you guys next week.